Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 4 of Quattroporte, the review series for the 4-door super saloons and sports saloons that are featured on Gran Turismo 6. And in this episode we're featuring what is really one of the best cars in this category, to be honest, and surprisingly at the same time one of the most underappreciated. It is the Tom's Chaser, which is of course based on a Toyota Chaser. The specific name for this vehicle is the Tom's X540 Chaser. This is a car which, as we said, seems to be often overlooked by many players. It's kind of a cult car, as many of these more specialist JDM cars are. Has a very strong but relatively small following of people who really love the car, but the majority of people in the community don't really seem to use or value this car that much, and in many cases there are people who just don't own this car at all. And I think a reason for that is because it's not in a big noticeable dealership. Obviously if you're looking for it you can see it, but you can very easily completely overlook the Tom's dealership and just never think to buy this car. And that really is a loss, because it's such a good car, especially in the saloon car category. Now, as it happens, it's competitive even beyond that category, but in the super saloon and sports saloon category of racing and just driving in general, the Chaser is a brilliant car. Now, in terms of what it has to offer, fully tuned, it puts out just under 800 horsepower. It's actually 798 horsepower fully tuned, and 576 pound-feet of torque. So the torque isn't that amazing. There are many saloons with more torque, but the power is very, very high. It is one of the most powerful, or one of the more powerful, saloon cars in the game. And another great thing about the Chaser, not too surprisingly because it's a Japanese car and they're generally quite well known for this, but it's also quite light, especially for a vehicle of its size. It only weighs 1,221 kilos with the full weight loss package, which for a full-size saloon is very impressive. That's significantly lighter than something like a Mercedes or a big Audi or a Beamer. It's a very, very lightweight car, especially considering that it's not a small car at all. It is one of the bigger saloon cars in the game. It's quite a large vehicle in terms of length and width. But thanks to its very reasonable weight and its very impressive power, it has a great power-to-weight ratio of 654 horsepower per tonne, which is far beyond what you'd usually expect from a big four-door car. Now, in terms of its performance, I'm happy to say it doesn't let down the numbers, because many cars have big numbers but don't really deliver on those numbers, but the Chaser really does. It is a brilliant performance car. It's one of the fastest saloon cars in the game in terms of acceleration and top speed, and it's just great at everything it does. It's a fantastic drift car, it makes an excellent drag car, a brilliant top speed racer, as I said, one of the quickest saloons. Incidentally, the top speed when fully tuned is around the 260 mph region, and that's without NOS or draft. So it is among the very quickest of saloons in the game. That's the same kind of territory as cars like the big Jags, the big Audis, in many cases beyond those types of vehicles, which is really good for a vehicle that's nowhere near as mainstream as those cars, or as well respected and well known. The Chaser really is not the obvious choice when you're thinking of super saloons, but it is one of the best choices that you could go for. And one of the main reasons why I think it's personally such a great car is the value for money. Because as well as being a brilliant, possibly the best actually, all-round saloon in the game, it's also very cheap. It costs 50,000 credits, which is significantly cheaper than many of the other super saloons from Jaguar, Audi, Mercedes, Beamer, etc. Many of those saloons cost well over 100 grand. This car is less than half the price of many of the other vehicles which have similar power, performance, etc. So overall, the Chaser is a brilliant car. As I said, top speed is fantastic, the acceleration is very strong. The handling as well, though, does not let it down, because that's kind of the way that some vehicles are let down. They can have big power, great straight line performance, and might even be something like a great drift machine, like this car is, but then when you want to drive them seriously to get a decent lap, they kind of let you down because the car doesn't really want to do what you want it to do. It ends up sliding around all over the place or not really getting the power down to the road properly. But in the case of this car, that doesn't happen. It handles amazingly well for a car of its size. It can outmaneuver vehicles that are lighter, much smaller and more compact. And handling-wise, it's actually very similar to something like a Supra or an RX-7. Not quite as slippery as those cars, but very similar handling characteristics. Very good turn-in from being a rear-wheel drive car and a lightweight rear-wheel drive car. And overall, it's a great car. I mean, there's nothing really I can say bad about the car. The only thing really is it's not a premium model, but that's not really a downside. That's just a shame. And it deserves it because it's such a good all-round car. And I have to say, if you have not tried the Tom's Chaser before, not necessarily just for the sake of having a four-door car, but even to put it up against sports cars, it's definitely worth a shot because it is a brilliant all-round vehicle for drift, drag, circuit, sprint and top speed racing, and at the same time in a highly affordable and easy to tune package. So if you haven't tried this car, I'd strongly recommend that you give it a go at least once. I guarantee you will not be disappointed with the car. And that's it for this episode, so I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.